The champagne was still cold when my CFO walked into the boardroom. "Kai, you need to see this," Simone said, sliding a leather portfolio across the table. "We just celebrated crossing $1.1 billion in valuation. TechVault had gone from a dorm room idea to a cybersecurity powerhouse in 6 years." The board was euphoric. I should have been too. But the name embossed on the portfolio made my blood freeze. Hargrove Holdings. "They want a meeting," Simone continued. "They're interested in acquiring our security infrastructure division. They're talking $500 million. I opened the folder. The proposal was detailed, professional, desperate. Hargrove Holdings had suffered a massive data breach 3 months ago. 40 million customer records exposed. Class action lawsuits. Federal investigations. Stock in free fall. They needed us. Specifically, they needed our proprietary encryption technology that made breaches nearly impossible. Without it, Dominic Hargrove would lose everything. "Schedule the meeting," I said quietly. "Really? I thought we weren't interested in selling." "Schedule it. And tell them Mr. Hargrove himself needs to attend. No intermediaries." Simone studied my face. She'd worked with me for 4 years but knew almost nothing about my life before TechVault. "Kai, what is this about?" "Justice. 18 years late, but justice. I was 14 when I watched my father die. Not physically, that happened later in a garage with a running engine. But I watched him die the day Dominic Hargrove walked into our factory. Preston Industrial Solutions. My father's pride. 25 years building a company that manufactured precision automotive parts. 800 employees. Backbone of our town in rural Michigan. My father, Thomas Preston, believed in loyalty. He believed that if you treated people right, worked hard, and delivered quality, you'd succeed. Dominic Hargrove believed in profit margins. I remember standing in my father's office that afternoon. I'd come by after school like I did most days. My father was at his desk, reviewing the quarterly reports, when his secretary buzzed. "Mr. Preston, there's a Dominic Hargrove here to see you." My father frowned. "I don't have an appointment. He says it's urgent." "About the company." Dominic walked in like he owned the place. Which I'd learn later he almost did. He'd been quietly buying up shares through shell corporations for months. "Thomas Preston," Dominic said, not offering his hand. "I'm here to make you an offer. I'm not interested in selling. I'm not offering to buy. I'm informing you that I now control 51% of Preston Industrial. The board will vote to remove you as CEO tomorrow. You have 2 options. Accept a severance package and go quietly, or fight and lose everything, including your pension." My father's face went pale. "This is my company. I built this. You built a moderately successful regional manufacturer. I'm going to build something profitable." "What about the employees?" Dominic smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Not my concern." Dominic Hargrove gutted Preston Industrial in 6 months. He fired 600 employees immediately. Sold the factory equipment to overseas buyers. Outsourced production to China. Kept the brand name just long enough to fulfill existing contracts, then dissolved the company entirely. The town of Millbrook, Michigan, population 4,500, never recovered. Unemployment hit 40%. Businesses closed. Families lost homes. The school district nearly shut down from declining enrollment as people fled for jobs elsewhere. My father tried to fight back. Hired lawyers we couldn't afford. Gave interviews to local press. Organized the remaining employees to protest. Nothing worked. I watched him deteriorate. The proud, confident man who used to take me fishing became a ghost. He stopped sleeping. Stopped eating. Spent hours staring at the wall. "I let them down," he'd whisper. "All those families. I let them down. Dad, it wasn't your fault. Hargrove is a predator. I should have seen it coming. Should have protected the company better. Should have." He trailed off, eyes empty. My mother tried to help, but she was drowning too. The severance package my father received barely covered a few months of expenses. We lost our house. Moved into a cramped apartment. Then, 6 months after Dominic Hargrove destroyed his company, my father went into the garage, closed the door, and started the car. My mother found him. I was at school when I got the call. They said it was carbon monoxide poisoning. Quick. Painless. They lied. Suicide is never painless. Not for the person who makes that choice, and certainly not for the people left behind. My mother shattered. Within a year, she'd lost custody of me and my 12-year-old sister Zara. Alcoholism. Inability to maintain employment. The state decided we'd be better off in foster care. They were wrong about that too. I spent the next 4 years in 3 different homes. Zara and I were separated after the first placement. Siblings rarely stayed together in the system. I saw her once a month for supervised visits where she'd cry and beg me to take her home. "I'm trying Z," I'd tell her. "As soon as I turn 18, I'll get us out of here." But I was lying. I had no money, no prospects, no future. I was just another foster kid headed nowhere. Until I found my father's journal. It was in a box of his things that I'd managed to keep. The foster care agency let me have 1 box of personal items. Most kids kept photos or toys. I kept my father's business records. In the journal, my father had documented everything. Every meeting with Hargrove. Every asset that was stripped. Every employee who lost their job. Every illegal maneuver Hargrove's lawyers had pulled. And on the last page, dated 2 days before his death, my father had written, "I failed to stop him. But someday someone will. Someone has to." That's when I knew what I had to do. I graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA and a singular focus. Learn everything Dominic Hargrove knew, then learn how to beat him at his own game. I enrolled in community college because it was all I could afford. Studied business and computer science. Worked 3 jobs, fast food, warehouse, tutoring, to pay for books and living expenses. When I turned 18, I petitioned for custody of Zara. It took 8 months and every dollar I'd saved, but I won. We moved into a studio apartment together. I slept on the couch so she could have the bedroom. "Kai, why are you doing all this?" she asked one night. She was 15 then, still traumatized from foster care. "Because someone has to take care of us. And because I'm going to make sure what happened to Dad never happens to anyone else." "What do you mean?" "I'm going to destroy Dominic Hargrove." She looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I was. I was a broke community college student working at McDonald's, declaring war on a billionaire. But I meant every word. I applied to MIT on a whim. The application fee was $75, money I needed for groceries, but I did it anyway. I wrote my essay about my father. About watching a good man be destroyed by corporate greed. About learning that the system protects predators, not prey. I got in with a full scholarship. MIT changed everything. I'd gone from community college classes with 30 students to lectures with hundreds of the smartest people I'd ever met. I was surrounded by future CEOs, innovators, world changers. But I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to build weapons. I majored in computer science with a focus on cybersecurity and data infrastructure. I minored in business management. I joined every entrepreneurship club. I attended every venture capital speaker series. And I studied Dominic Hargrove. I read every interview he'd ever given. Every annual report from Hargrove Holdings. Every SEC filing. I tracked his investments, his board memberships, his philanthropic efforts, mostly tax write-offs disguised as charity. I learned his patterns, his tactics, his weaknesses. Dominic Hargrove was a corporate raider. He identified struggling companies, bought them at a discount, stripped them for parts, and moved on. He'd done it 47 times over his career. My father's company was just number 32. But the business landscape was changing. The companies Dominic knew how to exploit, manufacturing, retail, traditional industries, were dying. The future was technology, data, AI. Dominic was a dinosaur who didn't know he was extinct yet. I graduated MIT in 3 years. Top of my class. 6 job offers from major tech companies. I turned them all down. Instead, I took a position at a small venture capital firm in Boston. I needed to learn how the money worked, how investments were structured, how to identify opportunities and threats. I spent 5 years there learning from the inside, making connections, building my reputation, and waiting for my moment. I started TechVault when I was 26. The cybersecurity industry was booming. Every company needed protection from hackers, data breaches, ransomware. But most solutions were expensive, clunky, and required massive IT departments to manage. I saw an opportunity: create an AI-driven security infrastructure that was intuitive, affordable, and nearly impenetrable. Something that could scale from startups to Fortune 500 companies. I recruited a team of MIT graduates, raised $5 million in seed funding, rented office space in Cambridge. Zara, who'd graduated college with a degree in marketing, became our first employee. She ran communications while I focused on product development. "You're really doing this," she said on our first day. "Building a company." "I'm building a weapon," I corrected. "One powerful enough to take down a billionaire." "Kai, this obsession isn't healthy." "It's not obsession. It's purpose." She didn't argue. She understood. She'd lost her father too. She'd suffered through foster care too. She wanted justice as much as I did. We just had different ideas about what justice looked like. TechVault grew faster than I'd imagined. Our first product, SecureVault, an AI-powered encryption system, was revolutionary. Companies could implement it in hours instead of months. It adapted to threats in real time. It was nearly unhackable. Within a year we had 500 clients. Within 2 years, 5,000. Within 3 years, we were the fastest growing cybersecurity company in the world. Investors were throwing money at us. We raised $50 million in Series A, $150 million in Series B, $300 million in Series C. By year 6, we were valued at $1.1 billion. I was a 32-year-old billionaire. The same age my father was when he founded Preston Industrial Solutions. The irony wasn't lost on me. Throughout all this, I kept tabs on Dominic Hargrove. His empire was showing cracks. Several of his recent acquisitions had failed. His portfolio companies were underperforming. He was making desperate moves, taking bigger risks. And then came the breach. Hargrove Financial Services, one of Dominic's flagship companies, suffered a catastrophic data breach. 40 million customer records exposed. Social security numbers, bank accounts, personal information. The lawsuits were instant. The regulatory fines massive. The stock price collapsed. Dominic needed help. He needed someone who could fix his crumbling infrastructure and restore investor confidence. He needed TechVault. He needed me. Dominic Hargrove arrived at TechVault headquarters at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'd told his assistant to schedule the meeting for 10 a.m. Mr. Hargrove is here, our receptionist called. Tell him I'm in another meeting. He can wait in the lobby. Simone looked at me. Kai, this is childish. My father waited in Dominic Hargrove's lobby for 4 hours before being told Hargrove was too busy to see him. This is courtesy. I made him wait until 2 p.m. When I finally walked into the lobby, Dominic was on his phone, angry and impatient. He was 58 now but looked older. Gray hair, lines around his eyes, the kind of stress that wealth can't erase. Mr. Hargrove, I said, extending my hand. Thank you for your patience. He shook my hand without warmth. Mr. Preston, let's not waste time. I assume you've reviewed our proposal. I have. Let's talk in my office. I led him through the building. Modern design, open workspace, young employees collaborating energetically. Everything his companies weren't. Impressive operation, he said. We believe in treating employees well. Investing in talent. Building something sustainable. Noble. But we're here to discuss business. We sat in my office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Cambridge. On my desk, prominently displayed, was a framed photo of my father standing in front of Preston Industrial Solutions. Dominic didn't notice. You need our security infrastructure, I said. Your breach was catastrophic. Without significant upgrades, you'll face ongoing litigation and regulatory scrutiny. Which is why we're offering $500 million for your enterprise division. I'm not interested in selling. His expression hardened. Then why am I here? Because I wanted to meet you in person, Mr. Hargrove. I wanted to look you in the eye. For what? To see if you remember. Remember what? Thomas Preston. The name meant nothing to him. His face showed no recognition. Preston Industrial Solutions, I continued. Millbrook, Michigan. 2007. A flicker. Distant memory. The automotive parts manufacturer. That was 18 years ago. You destroyed that company. Fired 600 people. Devastated an entire town. That's business. Companies fail. That company didn't fail. You killed it. Deliberately. For profit. He studied me more carefully now. Who are you? I'm Thomas Preston's son. The man you drove to suicide. The 14-year-old kid who watched his father lose everything because of you. Dominic's face went pale. Then recovered. I see. This is personal. Very. And now you're in a position to refuse my offer out of spite. Not spite. Justice. He stood. This was a waste of time. Sit down, Mr. Hargrove. I didn't say I wouldn't help you. I said I wasn't interested in selling. He hesitated, then sat. I'm proposing a partnership, I said. TechVault will provide the security infrastructure you need. But not through acquisition. Through integration. We'll embed our technology throughout Hargrove Holdings. Full access to your systems, your data, your operations. That would require complete transparency. Exactly. If we're going to protect your company, we need to understand every vulnerability, every process, Every transaction. That's an invasive level of due diligence. It's necessary. Unless you'd prefer to continue bleeding lawsuits and watching your stock price crater. He was trapped and he knew it. What are your terms? 3-month evaluation period. My team gets full access to conduct a comprehensive security audit. If we determine we can help you, we'll negotiate a partnership structure. If we can't, you walk away. And what do you get out of this? The satisfaction of seeing whether Hargrove Holdings is worth saving. The audit began the following Monday. I assembled my best team. Simone to oversee operations. Marcus, our chief technology officer. Natasha, our data forensics specialist. And me. We embedded ourselves in Hargrove Holdings headquarters in Manhattan. They gave us a conference room and promised cooperation. They had no idea what they'd agreed to. We're not just auditing their security, I told my team in a private meeting. We're auditing everything. Financial records, email archives, transaction histories. I want to know every deal Hargrove has made, every shortcut he's taken, every line he's crossed. Kai, that's beyond the scope of a security audit, Marcus said. The scope is whatever I say it is. You want to know why? Because Dominic Hargrove destroyed my father's company through fraud. He manipulated stock prices, bribed board members, and violated a dozen securities laws. He got away with it because my father didn't have the resources to prove it. I looked at each of them. I have the resources, and we're going to find everything. What we found was worse than I'd imagined. Hargrove Holdings wasn't just unethical. It was criminal. We discovered emails showing Dominic had engaged in insider trading for over a decade. He'd used information from board positions to make strategic investments, netting hundreds of millions in illegal profits. We found evidence of tax evasion. Shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. Falsified expense reports. Money laundering schemes disguised as international business transactions. We uncovered a pattern of corporate espionage. Dominic's team had hacked competitors, stolen proprietary information, and used it to undermine rival bids. And we found the files on Preston Industrial Solutions. The entire hostile takeover had been orchestrated through fraud. Dominic had violated SEC regulations about disclosure. He'd bribed 2 board members to vote in his favor. He'd manipulated stock prices through coordinated trading schemes. My father had been right. Everything he'd suspected was true. This is enough to destroy him, Natasha said, reviewing the evidence. Federal crimes. Prison time. Complete asset seizure. Not yet, I said. There's more. I can feel it. I found the connection on a Thursday evening. I was reviewing financial records from the Preston Industrial takeover when I saw a payment I didn't recognize. $5 million transferred to an LLC called Riverside Consulting. I traced the LLC. It led to a name that made my stomach drop. Lawrence Preston. My uncle. My father's younger brother. I pulled up everything I could find on Lawrence. After my father died, Lawrence had moved to Connecticut. Started a consulting firm. Lived in a mansion. Drove luxury cars. All on money that appeared 18 years ago. Right after the Preston Industrial takeover. I called Zara. It was late, but she answered immediately. Ka. What's wrong? Did you know Uncle Lawrence worked for Dominic Hargrove? Silence. Then, what? He was paid $5 million during the takeover. He was part of it, Zara. He helped Hargrove destroy Dad's company. That's not possible. Lawrence was Dad's brother. He wouldn't? He did. And I'm going to prove it. I spent the next week building the case. Email records showed Lawrence had been feeding Dominic information about Preston Industrial for months before the takeover. Internal financial data. Board dynamics. My father's negotiation strategies. Lawrence had betrayed his own brother for money. And my father never knew. I invited Lawrence to lunch. He accepted immediately, probably hoping to leverage our family connection for business opportunities now that I was successful. We met at an expensive restaurant in Manhattan. Lawrence looked prosperous. Well-fed. Content. Kai, he said, embracing me like we were close. We weren't. I hadn't seen him since my father's funeral. Look at you. Billionaire. Your father would be so proud. I sat down without returning the embrace. Would he? Of course. You built an empire. Just like he tried to. He didn't try. He succeeded. Until someone destroyed it. Lawrence's smile faltered. That was a tragedy. Dominic Hargrove is a ruthless man. You know. You worked for him. The color drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. I slid a folder across the table. Riverside Consulting. $5 million. Paid the same month you helped Dominic Hargrove execute a hostile takeover of your brother's company. He didn't open the folder. Didn't need to. Kai, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You sold out your own brother. You fed Hargrove information. You helped him destroy 800 jobs and an entire town. For money. It wasn't like that. Tommy was going to lose the company anyway. Hargrove approached me, offered me a consulting fee to facilitate the transition. You mean a bribe to betray your family? I tried to get Tommy to accept the severance package. I tried to make it easy for him. Easy? He killed himself, Lawrence. He put a gun to his head because he couldn't live with what Hargrove did to his company. A company you helped steal from him. Lawrence's hands shook. I didn't know he would. I never thought. You never thought about anyone but yourself. What do you want from me? An apology? Money? I'll give you whatever you want, just don't. Don't what? Expose you? Too late. I stood to leave. Kai, please. I'm family. No, I said. You stopped being family 18 years ago. You're just another person who destroyed my father. And like everyone else who destroyed him, you're going to pay. I called an emergency meeting with my team. We have everything we need, I said, laying out the evidence. Dominic Hargrove engaged in securities fraud, insider trading, tax evasion, and corporate espionage. Lawrence Preston facilitated the hostile takeover of Preston Industrial through illegal insider information sharing. This goes to the FBI, Marcus said. Not yet. First we leverage it. Leverage it how? Simone asked. Dominic Hargrove came to us because he's desperate. His company is failing. His stock is worthless. His reputation is destroyed. He needs us to save him. I pulled up a financial analysis. But what if instead of saving him, we finish what the data breach started? We don't just refuse to help, we acquire Hargrove Holdings. A hostile takeover, Natasha said. Using his own playbook. Exactly. His stock is trading at $8 per share. It was $85 before the breach. We can acquire controlling interest for under $400 million. We have the capital. But why would the board sell to you? Simone asked. They'll fight it. Not if they know what we know. Not if they understand that the alternative is federal indictment and complete asset seizure. I sent Dominic a message requesting a meeting. He responded within an hour. Desperate men are prompt. We met in the same conference room where we'd started the audit. Dominic looked haggard. The stress was eating him alive. Mr. Preston, he said, I assume you've completed your evaluation. We have. Your infrastructure is worse than we thought. The breach wasn't just a technical failure, it exposed fundamental flaws in your entire operation. Can you fix it? Theoretically. But there's a problem. What problem? We discovered irregularities during the audit. Financial discrepancies. Questionable transactions. Things that concern us from a liability perspective. His expression hardened. What are you saying? I'm saying that TechVault cannot partner with a company under potential federal investigation. There's no investigation. Not yet. But there will be. Unless you sell. Sell? To whom? To me. I slid a proposal across the table. I'm offering to acquire 51% of Hargrove Holdings at $12 per share. That's a 50% premium over current market value. It's a generous offer considering the alternative. The alternative? The evidence we've gathered goes to the SEC, the FBI, and every major news outlet. You'll be indicted. Your assets will be frozen. Your company will be liquidated. And you'll spend the next decade in prison. He stared at the proposal. This is extortion. No. This is justice. 18 years late, but justice nonetheless. You planned this from the beginning. Every single second. From the moment you walked into my office, this was always where we were headed. You destroyed my father's company. Now I'm taking yours. And if I refuse? Then I destroy you the same way you destroyed him. Completely and without mercy. Dominic tried to fight. He hired lawyers. Threatened countersuits. Called board members to rally support. It didn't matter. I'd spent 18 years preparing for this. He'd spent 18 years getting sloppy. The board of Hargrove Holdings received copies of the evidence. Securities fraud. Insider trading. Tax evasion. Everything documented, verified, ready for prosecution. They called an emergency meeting. Dominic was not invited. The vote was unanimous. Accept the acquisition or face criminal liability as complicit board members. They chose survival. Within 2 weeks, I owned 51% of Hargrove Holdings. The company that had been worth $4 billion at its peak sold to me for $380 million. Dominic was removed as CEO, stripped of his board position, forced to sell his remaining shares at market value. The man who'd spent 30 years building an empire lost everything in 14 days. I didn't fire Dominic immediately. I wanted him to watch what came next. My first action as majority shareholder was to announce a complete restructuring. Hargrove Holdings would divest from all predatory business practices. No more hostile takeovers. No more asset stripping. No more destroying companies for parts. Instead, we'd invest in sustainable businesses. Support struggling companies rather than cannibalizing them. Build rather than destroy. My second action was to establish the Thomas Preston Memorial Fund. $1 billion dedicated to supporting workers affected by corporate malfeasance. Retraining programs. Legal aid. Mental health services. My third action was to call a press conference. I stood in front of every major news outlet and told my story. The 14-year-old boy who watched his father's company destroyed. The foster kid who built a billion-dollar business to seek justice. The evidence of decades of corporate crimes. And I named names. Dominic Hargrove. Lawrence Preston. Every board member who'd enabled the fraud. The FBI announced investigations within hours. Lawrence called me 3 times before I answered. "You've destroyed me," he said. "My clients are dropping me. My firm is finished. The FBI is asking questions." "Good. I'm your family, Kai. Your blood. You were my father's blood too. That didn't stop you from betraying him. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose money over family. Now you get to live with that choice. What do you want from me? Nothing. You have nothing I want. You're just another name on a list of people who destroyed my father. You're not special. You're not important. You're just pathetic." I hung up. Lawrence Preston lost his consulting firm within a month. His clients fled. His reputation evaporated. The FBI investigation uncovered years of insider trading facilitated through his Hargrove connection. He was indicted on 14 counts. The family disowned him. My mother's side, my father's side, everyone. He became a pariah. Sometimes justice is prison. Sometimes it's isolation. Dominic Hargrove's trial began 8 months after I took control of his company. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They had the evidence my team had gathered, plus additional crimes uncovered during the FBI's investigation. I attended every day of the trial. Dominic's lawyers tried every tactic. Character witnesses. Technicalities. Claims that the evidence was obtained through corporate espionage. Nothing worked. On the 53rd day of trial, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty on 18 counts of securities fraud. Guilty on 12 counts of insider trading. Guilty on 8 counts of tax evasion. Guilty on 6 counts of corporate espionage. The judge sentenced him to 23 years in federal prison. Dominic looked at me as they led him away. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes besides arrogance. Fear. "You destroyed me," he mouthed. I nodded. "Just like you destroyed my father." The day after Dominic's conviction, I drove to Millbrook, Michigan. I hadn't been back since my father's funeral. 18 years. The town looked worse than I remembered. Boarded up shops. Empty factories. Houses in disrepair. The Preston Industrial Solutions building was still standing, barely. Graffiti on the walls. Windows broken. A monument to destruction. I'd purchased the building 6 months earlier through a shell corporation. Now I stood in front of it with architects, contractors, and Zara. "You're really doing this," she said. "I told you I would. Kai, the town is dying. The people who worked for Dad are gone or retired. This is symbolic at best. It's more than symbolic. It's proof that what Hargrove destroyed can be rebuilt. Better. Stronger." Over the next year we renovated the factory. Modern equipment. Sustainable practices. Fair wages. We didn't just rebuild Preston Industrial Solutions. We reimagined it. We brought in manufacturing for TechVault components. Created jobs in cybersecurity hardware production. Partnered with local community colleges to train workers. Within 18 months, we employed 1,200 people. More than my father's company ever had. The unemployment rate in Millbrook dropped from 40% to 8%. Businesses reopened. Families returned. The school expanded. On the day of the grand reopening, I stood in front of the factory with a crowd of workers, local officials, and reporters. And my mother. I hadn't seen my mother in 14 years. After losing custody, she'd disappeared. I tried to find her, but she'd vanished into the system of homeless shelters and addiction services. I'd assumed she was dead. I was wrong. She appeared 2 days before the Preston Industrial reopening. Zara had called to tell me someone was at her apartment asking for me. She says she's our mother, Zara said, voice shaking. I drove to Zara's place in Boston. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. The woman sitting in Zara's living room looked nothing like the mother I remembered. She was older, grayer, thinner. But her eyes were clear. Sober. Kai, she said, standing. I know I have no right to be here. Where have you been? Getting sober. Getting better. It took me 8 years to put the pieces back together. By then, I didn't know if you'd want to see me. Why now? She pulled out a folder. Because I had something you needed. Inside were documents. Old emails. Financial records. Evidence from my father's files that he'd sent to her before he died. Your father knew what Lawrence did, she said. He found out a week before the end. He sent me everything. Made me promise to keep it safe until you were old enough to use it. You knew? This whole time, you knew Lawrence betrayed him? Yes. And I knew you'd come for them someday. Both of them. So I waited. I got sober. I gathered more evidence. And I've been watching you build your case. How long have you been watching? 6 years. Since you started Tech Vault. I knew what you were doing. I knew you were going after Hargrove. So I fed information to your investigators anonymously. The shell companies. The Cayman accounts. The insider trading records. That was me. I stared at her. You've been helping me this whole time? You're my son. Your father's son. Of course I helped you. My mother testified at Lawrence's trial. She took the stand and calmly, methodically destroyed him. She provided evidence of his betrayal. Emails he'd sent bragging about his payment. Conversations he'd had with my father where he'd lied about his involvement. Lawrence Preston betrayed his brother for money, she told the jury. And when that brother killed himself from grief, Lawrence never showed remorse. He spent the blood money on mansions and cars while his brother's children grew up in foster care. Lawrence was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 15 years. As they led him away, Lawrence looked at my mother. You've destroyed this family. No, she said. You did that 18 years ago. I just made sure everyone knew about it. My mother and I didn't hug or cry or have a movie moment. We sat in a cafe drinking coffee, being strangers trying to become family again. I'm sorry, she said. For disappearing. For not being there when you and Zara needed me. You were grieving. That's not an excuse. You were children. You needed a mother and I chose alcohol instead. You got sober. You helped me. That counts for something. Does it? Can you forgive me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know yet. But I'm willing to try. If you are. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'd like that. Zara joined us that evening. The reunion was harder for her. She'd been younger when we lost our mother, remembered less, felt the abandonment more acutely. But slowly over months we rebuilt. Family dinners. Phone calls. Shared memories of my father that didn't revolve around his death. My mother moved back to Michigan, near the reopened factory. She volunteered at the community center, helping other families affected by corporate layoffs. She was building something from the ashes too. 2 years after acquiring Hargrove Holdings, I stood in my office looking at a photo. Not the one of my father at the factory, though that still sat on my desk. This was a new photo. The Preston Industrial Solutions grand reopening. My mother, Zara, and me standing in front of the factory. Behind us, 1,200 employees. Behind them, a town coming back to life. Simone knocked on my door. The quarterly reports are ready. I looked at the numbers. TechVault was now valued at $2.3 billion. Hargrove Holdings, restructured and renamed Preston Ventures, was profitable for the first time in 3 years. The Thomas Preston Memorial Fund had helped 15,000 workers nationwide. We did it, Simone said. Everything you set out to do. Not everything. Hargrove's out in 23 years. Lawrence in 15. That's not enough. Kai, they lost everything. Their freedom, their wealth, their reputations. What more is there? I want them to live long enough to see what we built. I want them to watch Preston Industrial thrive for decades. I want them to know that everything they destroyed not only came back, but became better than they ever imagined. That's not revenge. That's legacy. Maybe that's what revenge becomes when you win. 5 years after the trial, I received a letter. It was from Dominic Hargrove, forwarded from the federal prison where he was serving his sentence. I almost threw it away. Then curiosity won. Dear Kai, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm writing because I've had 5 years to think about what I did. To you. To your father. To the 47 companies I destroyed over my career. You asked me once if I remembered your father. I didn't. He was just another transaction to me. Another quarterly earnings report. I never thought about the people behind the numbers. I've had time to think about them now. I've read about every company I took over. Every person I fired. Every town I devastated. The list is long. The damage is incalculable. Your father was a good man who built something meaningful. I destroyed it for profit. That's unforgivable. But what you did, taking my company, exposing my crimes, sending me to prison, that's not what haunts me. What haunts me is that you took what I destroyed and made it better. You rebuilt your father's company. You created jobs. You helped an entire town recover. You proved that destruction doesn't have to be permanent. That someone with enough determination can rebuild what predators like me tear down. I'll die in here. I'm 63 years old with a 23-year sentence. I'll never be free. But in a strange way, I'm grateful to you. You showed me what I could have been if I'd chosen to build instead of destroy. You're the man I pretended to be in all those press releases and charity events. You actually care about people. I know this letter changes nothing. I know you'll never forgive me. I'm not asking you to. I'm just telling you that your father would be proud. Not just of your success but of your character. You had every reason to become like me, ruthless, cruel, predatory. You chose differently. That's the real victory. Dominic Hargrove. I read the letter 3 times. Then I filed it away. He was right about one thing, I'd never forgive him. Forgiveness wasn't the point. Justice was. And justice had been served. 10 years later. I'm 42 now. TechVault is one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the world. Preston Ventures has become a model for ethical business practices. The Thomas Preston Memorial Fund has helped over 100,000 workers. Preston Industrial Solutions employs 2,800 people in Millbrook, Michigan. The town has a population of 6,200. The high school just built a new STEM wing named after my father. My mother lives in a small house 3 blocks from the factory. She's been sober for 18 years. She and Zara talk every day. We have family dinners every Sunday when I'm in town. Zara runs the Preston Foundation now. She's married with 2 kids. She named her son Thomas after our father. Dominic Hargrove is still in prison. 13 years left on his sentence. I hear he teaches business ethics to other inmates. The irony is not lost on anyone. Lawrence served 9 years before being released on parole. He works at a grocery store in Nebraska under an assumed name. No one in the family speaks to him. He tried to reach out once. I didn't respond. Yesterday, a young woman came to my office. She was 23, fresh out of college, nervous. "Mr. Preston," she said, "I wanted to thank you. My grandfather worked at the original Preston Industrial Solutions. He lost his job when Hargrove took over. It destroyed our family. But now my dad works at the new factory. He talks about your father like he was a hero." "He was," I said. "I'm studying business. I want to build companies like you do. Companies that help people instead of hurting them. Can you give me advice?" I thought about my father. About the journal entry he'd written before he died. Someone has to stop him. I'd stopped him. But more than that, I'd built something that would outlast both of us. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, I told her. It's building something so good, so meaningful, so enduring that it makes their destruction look pointless. My father built a company that employed 800 people. Dominic Hargrove destroyed it. I rebuilt it better. That's not revenge. That's legacy. She nodded, taking notes. Also, I added, never forget the people. My father's mistake was trusting that good work would be enough. It's not. You have to protect what you build. You have to fight for it. And if someone tries to take it, you make damn sure they regret it. She smiled. Thank you, Mr. Preston. After she left, I stood at my window looking out over Cambridge. Somewhere out there, other people were being destroyed by corporate predators. Other families were losing everything to ruthless billionaires. I couldn't save them all. But I could build systems that made it harder for predators to succeed. I could support companies that valued people over profit. I could teach the next generation to choose building over destroying. My father didn't get to see his company succeed long-term. But I did. And every employee at Preston Industrial, every family in Millbrook, every worker helped by the Memorial Fund, they were proof that my father's dream wasn't destroyed. It was just waiting for his son to bring it back. I pulled out my phone and texted my mother, "Dinner Sunday? I'm bringing someone I want you to meet." She responded immediately, "The young woman who wants to change the world? How did you know?" "Because she reminds me of you at that age. Determined, angry, ready to burn it all down to make it right." "What did you tell her?" "That burning it down is easy. Building something better is hard. But it's worth it." I smiled. My mother was right. Dominic Hargrove spent 30 years destroying companies for profit. I spent 18 years preparing to destroy him. But in the end, the real victory wasn't his prison sentence or his financial ruin. It was the fact that my father's company, the one Hargrove had tried to erase from history, was thriving, growing, employing thousands. It was the fact that my father's name was on a high school wing, a memorial fund, and the hearts of an entire community. It was the fact that I'd taken the worst moment of my life and transformed it into something that helped people. That's not revenge. That's transcendence. And my father would be proud. I keep his journal in my office safe. Sometimes, late at night when I'm working, I take it out and read the last entry. I failed to stop him. But someday someone will. Someone has to. I grab a pen and add one line beneath his words. "Someone did. Your son. And he built something you'd be proud of." Then I close the journal and get back to work. There are more companies to build. More people to help. More predators to stop. The work is never finished. But that's okay. Because I'm Thomas Preston's son. And we don't give up. Ever.